right, guys, welcome back to Georgia Peachcast, coming to you from Cherokee County, Georgia. And I'm Pat.
And I'm Gregg.
And we have a guest. And
all right.
Her name is
Debra Shigley.
And that is right. We're here. So welcome to voters and anyone else listening. Okay. I'm not sure we're fortunate to be living that ancient Chinese curse / blessing right now. But we are fortunate to have Debra with us this week. She's a very special guest and we're honored to have her with us. She is a mother of 5. She is a former, or maybe current. I don't know. Are you still working as an attorney?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. So, employment attorney and a small business owner who is running for a Georgia State Senate seat for District 21. And I won't do that little joke that would drive Anna crazy. So, I'll tell that later. So welcome to our Peachy podcast. It's really great to have you with us, Debra.
Thank you.
And
it's great to be here.
Thanks to the actions of our wonderful Republican-controlled representatives here in Georgia, along with the reality show drama the federal government gives us on a daily basis, we have a raft of things we'd love to talk to you about.
So how about, can you share a bit about your background and what you first got interested in public service?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you guys. I live here in Milton. I have 5 kids. They go to Summit Hill, Hopewell, and now Cambridge. I have my first high schooler. They are 7 to 14. Kids are. So it's a busy life. Things are already pretty busy.
I just had 2 and they're off and running on their own. So,
yes,
you're beating the crap out of me.
So it's busy. And as you mentioned, I was not ever in politics. I was an attorney. And it was not something that was on my radar, but certainly over the past couple of years, things have gotten really crazy. And I just kind of looked around like so many folks and said, I have to do something. I cannot just sit on the sidelines. And so first it was a couple years ago when Roe was overturned, I felt immediately I had to get more involved. And that sort of sparked. I had been involved as, very much in my community as a volunteer and, obviously with the PTA and the SGC as part of Fulton County, there's School Governance Council. So I was an engaged citizen, but really had not considered being at the table of, politics until things started to really go left. And I thought I had to get more involved. And
wait, did they go left or did they go right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. They went right and they went really far right. Good one. And, as I started to kind of peel back the curtain on just how important our local officials are in making the decisions that impact our daily lives, I thought, well, why not me? And that's what led me to explore getting into politics to begin with.
Okay, well, fantastic. In terms of that, so what's been the progression? I mean, what's led to this point where you're ready to run in this special election to State Senate District 21?
Yeah, so I ran for the State House last cycle. So I had that was District 47, and that was my first foray into running for office. And I ran against the Speaker Pro Tem, Jan Jones, and that was an interesting first race to have. It was just sort of coincidence that that's who happens to be the incumbent in my, one of the most powerful, women in Georgia politics. But certainly, we raised, an amazing amount of money. We knocked 27,000 doors and we had a great, and
fantastic.
It was a great run. And I finished that and was kind of back into, I guess, civilian life, I suppose, and still staying involved and wanting to figure out what's the next way to serve, because certainly post-November, we already saw things beginning to unravel quite a bit. And I was just involved, going to meetings.
That may be an understatement. Starting to unravel.
Exactly. And then somewhat out of the blue, our state senator here in District 21, Brandon Beach, he was appointed by the current administration to the U.S. Treasurer.
Right.
So that created a vacancy. And when I heard that it was already there were going to be 6 or so very MAGA people who were
Right.
going to run in this race, which would be a jungle, I thought to myself, let's go. I
Yeah.
got to get in the mix.
Yeah.
And this is a great opportunity to flip the seat
Mhm.
and also stand up to this increasing number of policies that are just not good for
Right.
folks in our district or our state, and be a different voice.
Right.
I just realized something. It's something I've actually got to thank Trump for. Bring beach up to, and opening up 21.
Yeah.
That, you know,
And that
has-
hurts. That hurt me to do that, but it's all right.
well, you know, he has a habit of doing that. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
the out of
lining.
the way promotion, which,
Yeah.
you know, and that brings up a really good point because, you know, that's really what we need. We need
Mhm.
like people who are heavily involved in the community to be willing to see an opportunity, see that door open and go, I think I can do that. You know, I mean, and
Yeah.
kudos to you for taking that step because I think that's really, really important in a lot of ways.
So, what experiences in your career have shaped the priorities as to go as a candidate? What personally shaped you to have your priorities set in what you're going to be, what you're running for, and what you're hoping to accomplish?
Yes. Well, how far back do you want to go? Because I could go way back to.
You were born in when?
Why? Yeah, I was born in 1979, and actually, my parents were public school teachers, and I think some of the seeds of this,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
were set way back then, and how they raised us. So they're interesting. They were, so my dad is a Jamaican American immigrant. My mom is a Jewish woman originally from Great Neck, New York, and
Yep.
so they met teaching at a public middle school in the South Bronx.
Oh, you gotta love middle school kids.
Yeah.
They're special.
Yeah.
They're special animals.
Yes.
That's
And-
where I cut my teeth.
Yeah. So,
So-
you know, and this was, you know, it was a tough school. It was a tough school
Yeah.
at that time in particular. And they saw a lot of, impacts of where sort of things went wrong in the trajectory of the kids that they were teaching's education and how that impacted their lives. So long story short, when they were raising us, they were very committed to early education.
Mhm.
So this was, you know, they were having us
Research screams about that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so they, you know, not only were having us learn to read by the time we were 3, but we
Mhm.
went off to public school. They were very committed to public school. You know, it also shaped their belief about, on the good end, what education could do for someone's life. So that was something, a value instilled into me from very young, that education is, in this country in particular, one of the greatest ways to change the course of your life.
Mhm.
And if you have a solid foundation, and you work hard, then you can achieve your own version of the American dream,
Exactly.
whatever that
Yeah.
means for each of us. And so I think, you know, I grew up with the value of education, in my life, and I, you know, I did my undergrad at Harvard, law degree at Georgia State. And
That's
so,
we were wondering where the law degree went.
Yeah, so I was working full time actually at Atlanta Magazine. I was a journalist.
Yep.
Worked full time there while I went to law school at night. Very great education. Shout out to Georgia State, because at the time it was pretty affordable. I hear from some of my team members actually are Georgia State students. I've heard it's gotten much more, you know, their ranking has gone up, as well
Right.
deserved. It's a great option here in Georgia. Got a great education there, and I did employment law for a time. So I have a background as an attorney. I also was a business owner. I started I co-founded a business called Color that ran for many years. It was kind of like Uber for hair. And we had
Uber hair.
kind of like Uber for hair. Yeah. So we had stylists that went all over the Atlanta metro
Okay.
area to, you know, do in-home
Yeah.
hairstyling. And that
Yeah.
was a great business. It taught me a lot about obviously running a business, logistics, and really because a lot of our stylists were single moms who were working with our company to make extra money for, you know, their kids' uniforms or dance lessons or things like that. I mean, it just gave me a real insight into opportunities and how we need to do better. We need to do better in order to create good jobs for those in our community. We need to do more to help with income inequality and all of these different factors. So these are all things not directly related to politics, but I think shaped a lot of my thinking around it. And then certainly as I became a mom and much more involved in our community, I'm on the SGC. That gives you an insight into budgeting and how the county structure works in relationship to the state. And
so for our listeners who don't know, what is the SGC?
So it's School Governance Council. So every school in Fulton County has an elected body of, I believe it's like 5 or 6 people who help make certain decisions for the school. So like there are charter funds that, because of budget cuts, I believe it's going to be $30,000 this year, but the past couple of years it was $47,000. So the School Governance Council decides how the school is going to use those funds, and depending on what the school needs to fill gaps in, it can range widely. And then also involved in this year, it actually was part of, we had our principal resign, so you help decide who's going to be the new principal. So it's a way to bring parent involvement into some of the kind of the arc of the you're not administrators, but you're kind of working very closely with the administration of the school to make some decisions.
Yeah, and it's good, strong community representation, which I think is very important.
Yes, and local, really local, hyper local influence.
As long as they're working equally with the administration, not to control the administration.
Absolutely, yes. So working really really hyper locally there, and I've also been very involved in Planned Parenthood over the past few years. That was obviously women's and reproductive rights in general is something I feel very passionate about. And I got very involved with Planned Parenthood. I'm on different committees there. And I'm a mom. I'm raising my kids in this district. I know what, folks are talking about on the sidelines of the soccer games, and it is grocery prices and what's the best Kroger to go to, and how people are saving for college and things that they are nowadays worried about as they watch pretty crazy and horrific headlines every day.
Yes,
it gives me a sense of like the lived experience, and I hope to take all of that with me to the Gold Dome.
So that is a good segue into our next question is, obviously you're really engaged in your community, and, like you said, you hear what's going on with the soccer conversation. But you also are, I know you're knocking on doors and talking to voters. So when you speak to voters, what are like the top 3 things they're really concerned about? What's the big 3?
I'll tell you this, the conversation usually starts with where to begin. I mean, if I say, literally that question, there's kind of a chuckle. I mean, and they're like, where should we begin? Because there's just so many things. And at this point, we've knocked, I believe, around 15,000 plus doors and phone calls in the campaign. And we are about to, I think, cross over the 18,000 mark this year. So we've talked to a lot.
Right.
And it ranges. I mean, I think that the top thing that is coming up is affordability. That's what, folks are concerned about. And there is, in our district, there is a wide range. I mean, there's different socioeconomic levels. And, certainly there are a lot of folks that are, doing well in terms of income. But I think even with that, folks are feeling the pinch. They're looking at grocery prices that are more this year or this month than they were last year. And even for folks that are doing okay, you notice, and it impacts the bottom line. And so that is a major concern. And another thing that is coming up a lot is the chaos that's happening in the news. And so this, whether it is, I was just talking to a gentleman today who is a veteran. He actually identified himself as, he said he was Republican for years. But he has just he used the word disgusted by what is happening, whether it's the martial law in DC right now, all the way to the cuts in funding. He has dealt with some health issues, cancer diagnosis, and he's looking at funding cuts. And
he's a vet, so he has VA access.
Right. And his wife has some health issues. And so he's very, very concerned about healthcare. And even if he does have some of those, benefits, which should be more because we need to take care of our veterans, we all know that. It's the kind of callous nature of how this is going about. It's just like slash and burn, not even thinking about it. Then there's a lawsuit and then we're going to give back those CDC jobs. All of the way that it's being carried out is he said, just really makes him feel really disheartened about and scared about what is going on and what could be next on the chopping block. And that's something I hear a lot as well from something that's been really poignant is folks in the disability community who are raising children and adult children who have disabilities that require care. We have a number of waivers in our state that are funded by Medicaid. One of them is like the Now Comp waiver you may be familiar with. And just had a conversation with a voter in our district who's also an advocate. She does quite a bit of advocacy for disability groups. And she said, the disability community is really frightened right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The cuts to the funding that helps them live their lives with dignity.
Yes.
Are frightening.
Yes, absolutely. And some of these, like, are their optional program that we have that's already underfunded in our state, this Now Comp waiver. They've been on the waiting list for 20 years. I mean, people put their kids on it at birth.
No, not state of Georgia. They wouldn't understand that.
I mean,
right?
I
mean, we have powerful representation in the state.
With all the cutbacks, that's where state senators and state representatives are going to be much more involved in a lot of that spending that's going to have to come out of the state.
Right.
Which is not now coming out of the federal.
I mean, we had a huge surplus last year. So, where is it?
That's a
good question.
It's $16 billion that is hanging out, not working on behalf of the people.
Yeah.
It's in who knows where it is.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. And I think, in a state where we have this surplus and, families that have, utilized programs that have made a big difference in their life, even this moment where we're not sure what's going to happen and it feels like it could just be the rug pulled out any moment.
Yeah.
That also.
Well, they got the rug pulled out of them in the beginning when Georgia decided to not expand Medicare.
Yeah. And
I mean,
you're totally right.
That alone, because, we can't support Obamacare. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Which is basically a slap in the face to the people in Georgia that need it.
I think that was Medicaid, not more Medicaid.
Oh, Medicaid, sorry.
Medicaid.
Yes.
Not Medicaid.
And so,
people don't understand that all of those cuts, most of those cuts, will have to be picked up by states, one way or the other.
Yes.
So your involvement being a state senator is going to be even more critical than normal. It always was and always will be to a certain degree. But under these circumstances, state senators and representatives are really going to be busy.
They're going to be feeling the pinch for sure, and they should, because the ones that have come before you have not done their due diligence. And so,
it's a great point, and I think a lot of times, folks, even those that are civically engaged, I'm sure your listeners are very engaged. The difference between what the federal representatives cover and control, how what Congress manages and the president manage versus the state level. Sometimes that can be confusing to folks and we don't know how the division is. But I think interestingly right now is a time where we're really seeing that intersection. We know that because of the big ugly bill, those cuts to Medicaid, those cuts to SNAP, we instantly can understand how that will impact our state budget. And we're going to be losing funds. Or if it's not easy to understand, like, let me say, like, that will cut funding in Georgia. And our state budget will have to deal with that. And to your point, I mean, the folks in that room making those decisions, they have to deal with the fallout of that. And the Georgia citizens will bear the brunt.
Yeah. And that I was having a conversation the other day with a vet who uses the VA locally. But there are conditions that he's allowed to go out, and if he's not going to the VA for a medical service, he can go to certain doctors under certain circumstances. And that's going to change too, because now if those additional services or those side of services that he's been using, are now not being funded properly.
Yeah.
He's now going to be pigeonholed into having to go to the VA. And if the VA is all backed up and he can't get his services, there's so much that you as a state senator are really going to be involved in, more so, as I said earlier, than in the past. So
Yeah.
more need for us, the local people, to need you up in the Senate.
So that kind of actually covered our next question, because unless you want to tighten it up. So given what you said about what voters are telling you, what are some of the biggest challenges facing your district right now? So, because your district goes from really comfortable people, wealthy people, to some pretty hinterlands up in the Northwest.
Yeah, it's
some pretty strong. It's very geographically diverse, but also socioeconomically diverse.
Yes.
So, how do you anticipate working to help not just the folks that are worried about taxes in the more wealthy area, but the folks that are worried about just being able to keep the roof over their head?
Yeah. At the end of the day, if elected, I'm to serve the people. And so I think it's important to really understand where everyone is coming from,
right.
Before you go into it with just an agenda per se, right?
I mean, like Barry Lauderbaugh. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting era we've been in,
yes.
And that's your job, is to work for the people, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
I think there is a lot more in common than even amongst that. I mean, one thing that sticks out to me in our district is we have some pretty great public schools across the district.
Yeah.
We have 2 counties. We have Cherokee County and Fulton County. And by and large, we have some amazing public schools. And I am very concerned about the defunding of those. I mean, you're a teacher. How was funding when you were teaching? Was it
waxed and waned? Like I was there at River Ridge when we went through the 2008 crisis, or I was at Cherokee then, and so we opened River Ridge High School in 2009. I mean, that whole funding crisis hit us like a brick wall, where we got this brand new school and we have no money to buy a damn thing. I mean, we got a lovely football stadium, but I couldn't buy the stuff to teach physics. So that was tough, but they fixed that, and later on the funding really came in. So, and that is, Cherokee's done a wonderful thing, and so I've seen the funding wax and wane, but it wasn't so much due to local things. It was due to, factors that were affecting everybody.
Right. Like development.
So when the housing crisis hit, and everyone's home value dropped, tax allocations dropped because the millage rate was set. But if the millage rate it was at that time pretty much almost as high as it was legally allowed to go. But everybody's land values, everyone's home values were dropping. And so, and that's a cycle that everyone should understand who has their kids in public school.
Yeah.
Whether you rent, whether you, own, doesn't matter. And so, but the quality of education was always foremost, as much as we could put into it.
Yeah.
Which is why their reputation went up.
Yeah.
Because it was in the toilet when my wife and I moved back from Japan and started looking for jobs.
Really?
That's a whole other story.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting story, Japan.
But, that is, we avoided the more rural schools, districts, because of their reputations. At least that's why we ended up in Fulton. So, but you're right. Your district bridges. And so it gets the best of both worlds. And I think that's a very good, piece.
Yeah. And the formula that we've been using, I mean, it's hard to believe I don't think it's been updated since 1985, from what I understand.
Wow.
So even with that waxing and waning, we're using a pretty outdated formula to calculate basically the county versus state breakdown of funding of the schools.
Yeah.
So that,
the state was underfunding schools for a long time.
Totally.
They used that whole crisis.
That can easily, with what's going on, do a complete flip again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. As we were saying earlier.
Well, they've already done it with vouchers.
Yeah.
Right.
Put that in.
That's it. The housing thing is starting to flip now, and with everything else that's going on, that's going to flip again.
Yeah, the
That's going to
voucher
flip the
system
other way.
alone is going to pull
So
millions, if not more, out of school districts.
Yes,
so public school districts.
That's very concerning, I
Yeah.
think. And that was something that was not popular. They
Oh no,
finally got
no.
it by one vote this
Yep.
past cycle. And I'm concerned that would be just the beginning of what they would want to do, taking us to, moving towards universal vouchers.
Right.
Because that's certainly been the trajectory in some other states. So I think, as if elected, I obviously would push back in every way to prevent that, because I think we should be investing more, not less, in our public schools.
Oh yeah. No, that's deliberate.
Yeah.
That's an attack. Attacking the funding of public schools is deliberate. It's not accidental.
Yeah.
It's not incidental to the voucher program. The voucher program is part of that attack.
And
so
my connection with my oldest daughter just retired as a teacher. She put her 30 years in, and she did mostly in Cobb. Not all, but she taught actually even in Augusta, probably one of the worst schools she's ever taught, and she's always taught on the low end. She taught in Augusta, and it's still a state problem. She spent more time chasing rats and having the children and taking care of the children's,
she was
clothing
doing
needs
psychological.
than she did. What? Yeah, no. So I'm saying she's gone through the whole gamut. She's put up 30 in.
No, yeah.
But she was ready to go. It was it's been tough. Teachers are having a tough time in general. They're she's still got a couple of very close friends who are teaching, and they just can't wait to get out. And so it needs you. It needs you to help straighten that thing out.
Yeah. Well, you raise, a great point, because, as like your daughter, she's a professional. We should empower her to be able to do her best work, whether that is, being resourced enough so she doesn't have to chase rats. But also, there have been so many attacks that are, impacting their ability to teach what needs to be taught, to try to control every word that comes out of their mouth with some of these divisive concepts laws. And I hear from a lot of teachers that they are just operating in a climate of fear right now. In terms
it is challenging. It's more challenging than ever. Like I started out as a biology teacher, life science biology, middle school to high school. And I never shied away from evolution, because it's a scientific fact. It's a theory, but I won't go into the difference between scientific theory and an idea. But my students always got it in the end. And that was always, I never had any parents push back on me, but I approached it from a very professional standpoint. But what we're having now is anti-professional across the board, not just with teachers, and that, is very concerning to me. And it makes our jobs as teachers a lot more challenging. My wife is a teacher too. So,
okay, what does she teach?
Science. We can't pass a museum without stopping. So, but it's that, and that affects the community. So it ties right back into our question, because one of the challenges facing your district and every district is, how do we support the community? Because the community is what creates safe schools. It creates safe streets. It creates safe everything.
Yes, I agree. And it's kind of the soul of the community too. The public school involvement, the parents, the activities, the sports teams. Everything. We know that's a big part of our experiences, why you would perhaps want to live a certain place.
Yeah.
And,
people deliberately move into school districts for the schools.
Right.
Into those communities. So, supporting them is very important.
What do you think about the new law to not have cell phones?
Okay. So, cell phones really came into the fore when I went from middle school to high school. For the research is really clear that you just keep them out of middle school exchange. They don't need one.
Yeah.
The schools are in loco parentis. If the parents need to get a hold of their child, they can call the school or email the school, and they can have a note sent to them. Yeah. There's no reason for any kid, according to the research we're seeing, and in trials in other countries where they have just said no cell phones till high school, and over there high school is 10, 11, 12.
Okay.
9 is part of middle school, and so But on the other hand, for high schoolers, they have to transition into a world filled with cell phones, and they have to know how to use it as a tool. Not a tool for distraction, but a tool for learning and for management, managing their time, managing their meetings, managing their learning in their chosen profession. I mean, we use our cell phones for everything. You could have launched the Apollo spacecraft with one of our cell phones. That's how powerful they are. I mean, it is literally that true. And so cell phones have a place in adolescent lives, but certainly not pre-adolescent, certainly not early adolescent. And it has to be, their brain has to be ready to know how to use that tool effectively.
What do they do in Cherokee County? Do they make it across the board?
I think it's statewide. I believe it's statewide.
Across the board as far as all the way up through?
Yes, I think it's no cell phones in K through 8. For high school, there's a few different policies.
High schools, they have an exception if the teacher has made it part of the lesson.
Okay.
See, we have a challenge because the students need to have access to computers to do their work, to do their lessons, to do research, and so not all the schools are 1-to-1. You don't have a computer for every student. They're not even 1-to-2, where 2 kids can share a computer. Yeah. But then you have, they may not get along. I mean, and that's going to prevent. So there's a lot of factors, in other words.
So at the high schools, so it is teacher control at the high school level.
Yeah, they do have them. I believe.
And so, but they're also heavily encouraged to not make them a consistent part of the lesson.
It's not possible.
Yeah. And so, we're still figuring that out. We know that excessive cell phone use in middle school and high school kids does affect their development. It's like smoking pot. Bad for your brain when you're really young. It's not as bad for your brain when you're older. So, we want them to have nothing inhibiting the ability for them to learn how to use their brain. And cell phones have proven to be a problem in that regard. So I think we're still figuring it out, honestly. I don't think this is the end of the end of this massive social experiment that tech bros have thrown upon us.
Yeah.
So, I think that has to go, that's across the board technology wise.
Yeah.
That's something, AI coming along, who has to figure that one out? Now, no way that one gets down into the...
That's a big one.
That's a big one.
And once again, it's being thrown on us. My phone has rebooted itself, running updates in the last 6 months, more than it ever has in the 4 years I've owned it.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of those updates are them pushing AI into my phone.
Yep.
And so, and I see it. I see it changing the interface. I see it changing how it acts. And I didn't sign up for that. So, but they have carte blanche. We don't have strong laws like even the EU does that say, oh, no, wait, you can't do that, and so, this is where we are.
Debra, so kind of to wrap it up. All right. What's your final message to your voters?
Please vote. We are in early voting.
Yep.
And that goes through I don't know when this is going to air, but that goes through the 22nd of August, and election day is the 26th. And we need everyone who is a Democrat and or wants to come on board for something different, to get out and vote in this special election and make your voice heard, because we can flip the seat, but it's going to take all of us to do it. Also, if you want to help us out, we certainly could use any support. We are out talking to voters every day, whether it's phone banking, text banking, knocking on doors, which, I mean, you're the champion of knocking doors. Thank you for all of your help in that. The heat. Like you're a real one for that. Thank you. But if anyone else wants to help out or, chip in $5-10 at debraforgeorgia.com, it will help us turn out our voters. So thanks for your support.
Well, we will continue to do everything we can. And my philosophy is, as long as I'm doing everything I can, we have to then rely on whatever comes out. Okay. Which is, we lost the last one. We're not going to lose the next one.
That's the plan, baby.
That's it. All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes. Thank you very much.
We appreciate you there, and good luck. And we're going to be keeping working for you right up to the end.
Thank you so much.